John from Next Level Games. We have a Blue Eyes deck profile for you today. We've actually decided to go with the Chaos Max variant just because it's a lot of fun. We also have a Dark Magician profile coming out because the Legendary decks just came out, so it's cheaper than ever to build the deck. So if you want to catch that, just subscribe. For now, let's get into Blue Eyes. So for the main deck, we have 2 Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon, 2 Chaos Form, and 2 Advanced Ritual Art for the Ritual package. Then we have 3 Sage with Eyes of Blue, only 2 White Stone of Ancients, 2 Dragon Spirit of White, 3 Alternative, 3 the Vanilla, and 3 Manju of the 10,000 hands. We also have the 1 Veiler and 1 Maxi for the hand traps. And then we got 3 Melody, 3 Return of the Dragon Lords, 3 Trade-In, 2 Desires, and 2 Twin Twisters. And then just to round it off to 40, Soul Charge, Book of Moon, which has a lot of good synergy with Chaos Max, and 1 Silver's Cry. So we only run the 2-2-2 I found this to be the most consistent in testing. I tried cutting down to 1 Chaos Form because trying to get this deck down to 40 is a little bit tricky, but between the spells, like, you never really know. I thought you only really need the Advanced Ritual Art most of the time, but you never really know. It just depends. So like, you don't want to, and especially with Desires in the deck, you don't want to banish all your options if you don't have to. So I tried to run less, and I tried to run 3 the Advanced Ritual Art. It just clogged it up even worse. So I think 2-2-2 is just the best way to go about it for the Ritual package. The 6 cards are pretty easy to work with the Manju, and they don't really brick you too often. And then 3 Sage, obviously the second best normal in this deck. You can normal it and just get an effect veiler, so you have a hand trap for sure on your turn, or for the next turn. And then with spirals coming out, any hand traps you can get is always good. I mean, Veiler isn't really like a game-winning hand trap, but slowing down even a little bit sometimes helps. I cut down the White Stone of Ancients. You'll notice there is also not a single White Stone of Legend. There's no Dragon Shrine, and there's also no. And that allowed me to take out the cards of Consonants. The reason is because those cards, they do get some Blue Eyes onto the field. But with Advanced Ritual Art being like your main way to summon Chaos Max, those cards don't explicitly get you a Chaos Max Dragon on the board, which is the main win condition of this build. White Stone of Ancients is good though because if you trade in the Chaos Max or it dies or it gets Kaiju'd or whatever, they can actually bring it back, and then you can you have 4 spells in the deck. So hopefully you can reach one and summon it again. So although while this is really useful, without Dragon Shrine it's kind of hard to get it into the grave anyway. There are the Twin Twisters for it, but that's not always the ideal play. But it also gets us down to 40. I found in the regular Blue Eyes build, if you try to do too much of the pure plays as well as the Chaos Max, it's so hard to get down to 40. So I was kind of focused so that it was just Chaos Max was our win condition. And although summoning this guy is pretty good, its real purpose is to stall until you have a Chaos Max to win you the game. And then 2 Dragon Spirit of White. This is pretty standard. I wouldn't cut it just because we have Desires, so you don't want to banish both copies of this, because it's really good against Paleos. It's decent against Magician Pendulums, just because they banish instead of destroying. And destroying cards sometimes actually ends up plussing them, or if you destroy Purple Poison, it actually kind of wipes out your board too, which you don't want. Really strong card. With Twin Twisters, if you discard the Ancients, something that's on end phase against Paleo, that's up to 3 removal. It's probably your best combo against them. And 3 alternative, 3 Dragons of the Vanilla Blue Eyes. You just kind of need it. You can't really cut those. This guy, if you don't have a Chaos Max play, is the easiest way to get the Spirit Dragon. Your 5 normals, and this is just an easy Spirit to stall the game until you can get the Chaos Max out. And then Manju, self-explanatory, just for consistency. We tried to play the Senju, even just 1 or 2, but if you think about it, there's actually 6 good normals and technically 8 possible normals in the deck already, so we found that it didn't really help that much. I wouldn't really put it in. The 3 Manju is enough consistency, and we've already cut this down to 40. The biggest problem for this deck isn't Apocalypse or Kaiju's. It's a matter of can you get cards on the board, and this monster lineup is just perfect for that. We play the 1 Maxi just because I think it's the only hand trap worth running, but I'd love to have the Ashes and the Ghost Ogres and stuff like that, but the guaranteed Veiler is really like enough for now, and then like the maxi to sack them, is like all you can really depend on. Because if you run too many of the hand traps, like if you look at what I could cut here realistically, like cutting these is really not good if I go against a trap heavy deck. These three are really good against like almost every matchup. Like maybe the Silver's Cry I could cut out, but I usually side it out anyway. But it's not really worth it just to run like one Ash. So that's why I don't play any of those hand traps. There's just no room for it. You really want this deck down to 40 to make sure that you can always summon at least something. It also makes trade-in more live if you just have 40. So that's why we play that. 3 Melody, self-explanatory. It's a Chaos Max deck, and it searches Chaos Max, as well as fodder for it. Return of the Dragon Lords is also just really good. Protecting one of your dragons is, probably the better effect of the two, but, I won't say no to summoning one back as well. Desire is actually put in last, so I'll just skip that for a second. Twin Twisters. Such a good card. It allows you to go second. Really good going first against certain matchups as well. Playing 3 is not bad, but I decided to side the third spell trap removal instead of just maining it. Just because there's some matchups where it doesn't really help that much. Like going second against Invoke, it doesn't really, if you pop the field spell on your turn after they've already summoned the Mechaba, like, it doesn't really help you that much. So a lot of, like, monster heavy, or even against ABCs, like, if the Union Hanger and the Diagram have already resolved, it doesn't really do that much. So I only play the 2. Playing 3 was not bad, but then, there's too many matchups where it doesn't do enough against, and discarding a card is not always good. And then just 3 to round it off, we got the Soul Charge, just for winning games. Book of Moon obviously has a really good interaction with Chaos Max, which opens up your OTK and damage. Silver's Cry, it's not the greatest card, but it allows you to OTK a little bit, and is kind of like a spell trap removal as well when you bring back the Spirit of White. So that, excluding the Desires, is 38, and Desires just fill in those last 2 spots, honestly. If there was 4 empty spots, I'd have 3 Desires and an Upstart. But because there's only 2 after everything that I felt was necessary, I just put in the 2 Desires last. And that's the main deck. So there's going to be 2 Spirit Dragon being our main Synchro Summon, and 2 Azure. I've been trying to cut this card though, I just don't really know exactly what else I would run. It does come up having the second one though, like sometimes the first one, just because there's like a few popular traps like Lost Wind or Strike, they get rid of this one, and like if you don't have any way to revive it, there's only a handful of revival cards, you really want to go back into it again. So I play the second one just in case. Fairy Dragon just to make Crystal Wing, as well as Michael for removal, and that rounds off the synchros. 1 Twin Burst for the fusion, just to contact in. The number 15 Giant Grinder is also really good, just to burn for damage, and Alsay is just a good, rank 8 removal as well. So as in terms of spot removal, this sometimes comes up. I admit though that this card, and the second one of this doesn't always come up, or even sometimes the Michael doesn't come up. But if I took out these 2 cards and maybe this, I would actually just make room for Cherry's targets. With Chaos Max being your main win condition in this deck, you actually don't really need your extra deck too much. So sometimes it's actually more worth it just to make room for 3 Cherries and have Buster. Mechaba can really hurt your deck if they fuse using your graveyard, so sometimes I really wish I had the Mechaba instead of this guy. It just doesn't come out quite as often in this format. And then for this one, with Double Helix or Firewall would probably be the best ones to do. So just to give you more options against like the upcoming meta, that might be a good way to go as well, because admittedly, the only synchros that you really go into are going to be these 4, and then, that's about it in the extra deck even. The rank 8 package is just there for options. You don't really go into it too much. If you're not too afraid of the Spiral matchup, or you don't want to do Firewall, stuff like that, Toad is also a really good option, because this deck has a lot of trouble with Paleos. When you have the Twin Twisters and stuff like that, and you're summoning the Dragon Spirit of Whites, I mean, your matchup is great. But if that's not happening, they really, really hurt. So that would be another idea that I might try out. So this is going to be the 1 Harbinger, just because, it's really strong. It gets protected by return because it's a dragon, and negate spells. You never know when that comes up. And then we're going to have both, there's going to be two rank 8s, Galaxy Eyes Cypher, as well as the number 107. This one is just to go straight into Galaxy Eyes. This one is to go into Cypher Blade Dragon, which is only available right now in the Jump exclusive. This card is really good, this package right here, but it is a little bit less powerful with no, you see there's no Link monster here. So what Galaxy Eyes does, Cypher Dragon, is it can steal a monster and name it Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon. So before Links, you could just put this right over that, and that'd be a pretty busted board. But without that, it just comes up way less often. It's still worth it to run though. This is actually the better version of Armor Dragon, in my opinion. Armor does have 4,000 attack, but this has a little bit more utility. Because when it gets sent to grave by your opponent attacking a monster, or by card effect, you can bring back a Cypher Dragon, which, you know, if you haven't used it yet, can go into Dark Matter. And then if that does get used up, or this gets kaiju'd, then you still have the 107 to go into Dark Matter again. Otherwise, that's the extra deck. So here's the side deck. I play the one of Raigeki just because going second, it's good against almost every matchup, so I think it's just worth it to play, just to bait up Mecha Buzz or stuff like that. Or to bait out the Buster Dragon so that he's not banishing on your turn. 2 Book of Eclipse. Book of Moon has been really good in this deck, and if I could play more, I would, but because I can't, I just play this card instead. It's not bad still, and it does out like some problematic cards like Beals, as well as Unbreakable Crystal Wing with Wind Witches, that normally they kind of deplete your resources to try and out, so they're kind of annoying, and so this kind of gets rid of them, as well as helps you OTK. I don't mind the drawing effect though, just because if you're not OTKing them pretty early, you're probably gonna lose anyway. You know, that's what this deck does, so it's not that big of a deal. But I pretty much never use it like as a trap. Like I never just side this going first and then hit it on their turn. Like, I only do it for OTKing going second. Cyclones, Masterpiece isn't that much of a problem card if you can summon 2 big monsters, because you can just bait out his effect usually with some other stuff. But the thing is that what really hurts is when you're trying to do your plays and then they tribute on your turn with a trap card like Apocalypse or Return, and then activate to destroy one of your monsters as well. That really hurts, so this kind of helps you stop that. The main target for this, honestly, is Apocalypse and Return. It's still good against some other stuff though, like Magician Pendulums, and it can be decent against Paleos, especially if you're going first and you banish some of their Paleos. But the main thing is for True Dracos. Deep Barrier is just a safe option against a lot of decks, so it can stop people from going into Buster, stop like XYZ decks. Against Pendulums, it's still really strong just to call Pendulum and, you know, stop their plays early on. So this card's always worth it to play. I don't really play this against Paleo though, however. Even though they do XYZ summon a lot, I find it's not really that worth it just because they're probably gonna summon off of it anyway. So it's up to you if you want to play it against Paleos, but I find it's not the greatest. And then 2 Anti-Spell Fragrance. I was considering playing this at 3, but the thing is with the Magician Pendulums is that they have a lot more outs to this than other Pendulum decks in the past. So they have Purple Poison, they have the Trap card, and obviously like on standby they just have their own like Cyclones probably, or Twin Twisters, stuff like that. So it's not as potent as it used to be, but still really strong. It hurts you a little bit though too, just because you have such a huge spell lineup in this deck. Like half your cards I believe are spells, so it can slow you down. I wouldn't really play it against like True Dracos going first, because although it hurts them, it might also hurt you even more. So it's not really that worth it in my opinion. But against Magician Pendulums, it's definitely going to hurt them more than you if they can't out it. So that's really worth it to play them. I would definitely not take this card out. 2 Gamma Steel, just because Kaijus are really good. I didn't play the full Kaiju package, but maybe I'd consider switching it just to open up more OTKs. If I did, it would be 4 Kaiju cards, 1 Gamma Seal, 1 Gadarla, and 1 Dogoran, because they're all trade-in targets, and then just the 1 Slumber. For now, though, I found the Gamma Seal is enough. And 2 Heavy Storm Duster. This is just because I really don't like the Paleo matchup, and although a 3rd Twin Twisters would be nice, this card's just good because if you have this set going first against them, you know, destroying 2 cards using only 1 card is just, you know, that's just really good value. So in testing, I've liked this a lot. The one thing I don't like is that because it's a trap, they can sometimes summon off of it in the mid game, but it's still worth it to play. Like I said, you take away 2 cards just for using 1 card. And then 2 Dual Unlock. This is just kind of preemptively for the Spiral matchup. There's not a lot of hand traps in this deck, so although I love Ash and Ogre, this kind of just stuns them a little bit better. So anticipating that matchup as well as True Dracos, I side the 2 Dual Unlock Bird. And that's the side deck. Alright, there's the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it and that it helps with your own deck building. If you have any recommendations or suggestions, just drop a comment below. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks!